Welcome back to Nobunaga's Ambition Abridged, where in the previous part I was able to live the dream by having Offie play some of the game for me. We also managed to bring down the Takeda and the Imagawa, stealing most of their territories, so things are looking pretty good over there. Although Offie's antics did then get us into a war with the Mori, mainly because the Mori were just showing up for no reason to our battles. So we've now crusaded against the Mori, but the Hojo are crusading against us at the same time, so just need to deal with a two-front war again. With the Hojo, they're coming for this castle down here, Kanbara, and I've already ordered the Tokugawa to send troops to defend it for me. Plus I'm even going to deploy some of my own troops, now that's generous of me. We've got some reinforcements on the way to the vague Takeda area, and the troops already in the Takeda area will come down to fight. One of our units here is under AI control because there's a castle that we don't have direct rule over. They're killing themselves, but that is providing a distraction and lessening the attack on the main target, and we've now got that castle locked down with a few troops. Some of our allies have already arrived, and the battle begins. There is a river here, but I don't think there's any kind of river defense mechanic in the game, so we'll just leave them to it. We've blocked the enemy's advance, and the Mori, as you can see, are blocking our advance at their border, although I am beginning to outflank them. We can strengthen our western situation by grabbing this political marriage with the Chosakabe clan. With them on board, Shikoku Island will be secure for us, so that will be nice. Here's a look at the battle then. I'm not going to do any manual fights here, I'm just going to let the two sides queue up and grind against each other. The enemy might be a little bit closer to their base of reinforcement, but we have the Tokugawa's base of reinforcement to use, and they've already got plenty of troops in the battle for us. We could charge down the mountains there and attack the enemy column in the flank, but I decided not to. We might as well just wait with those troops and see if a better opportunity arises, because that flank attack wouldn't be supporting the main attack, it would be a separate battle. Not the case there with the Mori, where our flank attack is going to be helping out with the main advance. We now have another Digivolution, as Nagao Kagetora is going to evolve into Uesugi Kenshin, thus achieving the mighty Uesugi clan status, which is appearing a bit late into the game for them to do anything, although they are actually helping us right now because they're at war with the Hojo alongside us. Now with our frontline battle, we've got a bit of a situation because somehow an enemy unit used all the back roads to get around to my flank there. Obviously I wasn't paying enough attention. Luckily we do have an unengaged unit sitting on our flank, so we can turn back to stop them actually taking part in the main battle, and then more guys can come up behind them, so eventually we'll have those guys attacked from both sides, and that will just be a separate battle. They're not going to be able to support their main push, which is ideal. We're now going to pull most of my units off the front line, because in the queue for the battle is all allied units. We might as well let them go in and do the fighting for us. Our stuff will wait behind the front line, and if the Tokugawa can damage the Hojo enough, we can then push and potentially turn this into a counter-attack situation. We are sending units back one by one, but plenty more are in the queue to join the battle, so it's just going to go on for month after month. With the Mori, things apparently went well, because the next time I checked over here, the enemies guarding their border are just gone, so it's time for us to make an advance. But that's not the end of the battle for this little spot of territory, because another blob of Mori reinforcements is on the way. Plus this castle proves to be quite resistant to siege as well. We do need to still go around the front line to open up some more fronts. The issue we have is that there's no connection on the left side of the screen. There's a road that goes over that looks like it could allow you to go around the front line, but apparently not, so we have to take this long mountain route to get behind it. Inconvenient, but I can open up this other front further back. I've sent 2 units to cross the sea from Shikoku to attack a castle behind the front line that at the very least is delaying some of the enemy's reinforcements on the way to that front line, which will help us out immensely. the Uesugi have just fulfilled a relief request I gave them. I'm not quite sure what they did, but in some way, I gained a castle from the Uesugi fighting the Hojo over here. The battle is still going on, but one of the castles there is now controlled by us. Not really sure why, since we weren't at all involved. Maybe if you order relief forces to do something and they take territory, it goes to whoever ordered the relief force. Not quite sure. We also just gained another vassal as an annexed territory, so some more free castles joined the clan. Our territories on the northern coast aren't really doing anything right now, so I decided to have another crusade essentially. We might as well up the ante against the Mori by crusading down the northern coast as well, since the Mori are also there, and we can also get most of the way while being resupplied by our vassals and allies. So while it's going to take a while to get there, especially with the roads up on the northern coast being trash, we'll have another front opening up as a result of that one day. Meanwhile, the battle on the front lines is petering out a bit because I had to send a lot of troops to walk back and kind of rejoin the queue from the back in order to get more supplies, plus a whole bunch of our troops are now taking a long route through the mountains to try and get somewhere more advantageous. With the Hojo, looks like we've done it. The last couple of units in the queue are going back now. We have successfully defended our territory, so the question is now, since we just took out a bunch of Hojo troops, can we steal anything from them? And I've already sent troops to begin thinking about doing that. On the Ise Peninsula, a couple of units are heading to the southern tip where there was a weak castle. It's a bit of a dodgy position where it's easy for the enemy to rear attack us, but as these enemies come to rear attack us, I've got another unit coming slightly delayed to rear attack them. So we're going to be forming a bit of a sandwich there at that choke point. Maybe it will work out for us. My behind enemy lines move against the Mori proved to be more successful than expected. We actually took the castle back there. Offie D has sent a bunch of units over here as well. And now we can go and attack the back of the enemy's main defensive positions. All of a sudden the Mori are in enormous trouble. Looks like we're about to take them down big time. Plus our vassals and allies are already attacking the Mori on the northern coast even before my crusaders arrive. So that's looking good. This situation is a bit more messy though. My first wave of troops is totally surrounded. The second wave now arrives to attack the enemy in the back and try to break them out. I decided to actually do this one manually, not only to try and resolve the fight a little bit better than it might otherwise go, but to grab the castle damage bonus because this is technically a fight for a castle. It's also another battle where we only have to defeat the main clan unit to win. Everything else on the field are allies, so they don't count. We can focus down a single unit to make this go a bit better than it otherwise would. The downside to this plan is that by focusing all of my units on this one enemy, we've ignored the position of the other enemy, and I actually don't know where they are at this stage in the battle. This was the first time in a battle when I was trying to get the lines to line up over the enemy. Those green lines that appear are something to do with how powerful your ranged attacks are, apparently. Here's the bad news though, the guys I wasn't paying attention to show up behind my main blob and use some ability that causes me to lose control of two of my main units. That's not ideal. In this case, it's not quite going to be enough to stop us though, because the unit we have to kill is by this point in terrible condition. So we can beat them down, plus we get control of our units back after a second. That's a victory, and now we'll get the extra damage against the castle, meaning we'll probably be able to do this siege with what we have left over. Even grabbing this castle though will leave these troops in a difficult position where we're a bit cut off from the rest of our own territory and we're closer to the enemy's territory. Before we look into that anymore though, we've got this scene where we are informed that if we take 5 more castles we can become the shogun, so we're actually progressing towards winning the game. I didn't know how to win the game, but this is how you do it apparently. You just have to get a certain amount of stuff. We need 30 or more castles. A castle being a specific type of place. A lot of the places on the map are fortresses rather than castles, so we have way more than 30 places, but we need some more big ones essentially. Over on the Mori front, well, we've just completely broken through. We've captured 2 of their frontline castles. Their remaining troops are now going to be annihilated from several directions. Plus, our allies are making some good progress on the northern coast. once our Crusaders show up there as well, that will go even faster. And at this stage, we just need to push the Mori as much as possible and make the best of our crusade before we run out of troops. We've got a bit of a bad situation though with the Hojo, because my siege was interrupted by the arrival of a whole bunch of extra stuff. Not quite so much that we'll definitely lose fighting them, but it's going to make the siege difficult, and it's hard to support that position. The main overland route there is blocked by some powerful enemy units. We can use a sea route to bring units in, as I'm doing there on the left, but that also rapidly becomes blocked by the enemy moving a massive unit down towards the south end of the peninsula. And you might have noted a message came up earlier there saying my random castle out in the middle of nowhere is about to get destroyed. Well, that's okay, we're not going to try and defend that place. So overall, that situation's a bit hairy, whereas the Mori situation is absolutely smooth, I guess. The opposite of hairy, it's going fine. I thought we'll probably lose if we try and hold on with that southern group now that the enemy are throwing more and more stuff down here. But we can actually sneakily escape over sea. There's a sea lane that allows us to swing back around to behind where the enemy are now. Plus, with them sending so many troops down there, we make a minor breakthrough up north, but that's immediately countered by another batch of enemy reinforcements coming in onto our flank up there. So an awkward strategic situation to say the least. We need to sacrifice troops to stop those new enemies getting involved with that siege I just started, grab that castle, and then we'll have the rest of the peninsula cut off and maybe things will look a bit better. As it stands though, all of our troops are pretty much getting cut off. Looking at the situation, I didn't really see a good way to get out of this, especially because we're being attacked in other locations. Our vassal, the Satake over to the east, have been almost entirely conquered by the Hojo, so there are about to be more enemy troops freed up nearby, whereas we don't really have any more things to throw into this grinder at this stage. I already brought down everything that's anywhere close to the front line. So it's time to pop off our secret weapon. We have maximum trust with the Emperor because I spent loads of money on this. This allows us to automatically end a war whenever we want. It was easier than I thought actually. We just get the Emperor to tell the Hojo off, and the war is now officially over for at least 6 months. This means we are free to go home and not get surrounded by those incoming Hojo troops. And that's all fine really, so we didn't capitalize on the successful defense by taking some territory, other than that random one I got somehow. But that doesn't necessarily matter at this stage, because we're getting close to having enough territory to win the game. We don't have to try and take it from the Hojo, who are going to resist heavily. We can go after the Mori, who, while they are resisting, are not going to succeed. They're either retreating or getting killed on multiple fronts right now. We have so many troops left over from my crusade that we can go after several castles at once and have the advantage in numbers still at all those castles, especially because we have some of our best officers among these troops, including Nobunaga and the Takanaga strategist guy I mentioned before, who has super high stats and has tons of troops as well. With our northern crusade, I was annoyed to find there's no road link that allows me to go around to the enemy's flank, so it's going to be another queue for battle over there that will take a while, but we certainly have numbers on our side. And yes, you can see the Mori just being annihilated or running away. We're going to very quickly sweep across this open territory and just steal it all. Some of the castles start surrendering the moment we get to them, like this one right here. So I'm not sure what causes that. I'm guessing if you're just so powerful they don't even want to bother with the siege, then you get it even faster. But even when they don't surrender, the sieges are easy enough because we have several big units, and many of these castles aren't very good at this stage in the game. There's the guy I was talking about, Hanbei Takenaka, with his big, powerful unit. They can just plow on to the west and go after some more castles. The other troops are going inwards into the mountains, where there are a bunch more castles to take and enemies to kill. We get surrounded briefly here, but it's not going to do anything. We're still too powerful for the enemy. We can just fight our way out of that one. Looks like the enemy rear attacked Nobunaga's siege, but then another unit comes in to rear attack them, and they go straight down. The other battle nearby is probably the least favourable of the situations, but it's still in our favour, so I'm happy to just leave that going along. and our Northern Crusaders finally starting to get somewhere. I am going to have to storm that castle because I don't have enough supplies to properly siege it out. But that's okay, doesn't really matter if we take extra losses at this stage in the campaign. Looks like we completely annihilated the castle, destroying it down to 0 hit points, which then allows you to storm and kill the garrison. They surrendered there, and that's the end of that. We're going to send back some of our pretty dead units, but the ones that are good enough might as well keep going. Or I thought that at first. There's a really powerful enemy castle next along the road. That's probably their capital. So I thought, well, I won't send my small group there. I'll wait for a bigger breakthrough with the bigger groups, and then we can all go over there together to make it nice and easy. And the bigger groups are finding success. We capture this castle with Nobunaga, and in quick succession the other castle nearby just surrenders, perhaps in response. So that's great. We are absolutely storming through the Mori even faster than I thought we would with our advantage. And we're going to move on a little bit now to a few turns later when we're basically storming into their final areas. They're going to be out of troops. We can just win at our leisure. I've even taken all of the Mori's territory that we've already captured and turned it into a new province. That's what all those purple units are. So the former Mori territories will now help us take the rest of them. We captured their faction leader a moment ago, but I let him go off on his own because I'm a nice person. But that's going to be the end of his faction anyway, isn't it? There's not too much he can do. So moving forwards again, here's the final bit of the war, where we're capturing multiple things all at the same time. There's nothing they can do to stop us. And it just so happens that a couple of the places we took during the Mori stampede were castles. So we are actually going to hit our 30 castle limit right now, or not limit, our objective I should say. So there we go. Not quite sure what the difference between a castle and a fortress is, so I wasn't aware that this was going to be the end of the campaign, but it is. We've actually done it now. The other thing you have to do is capture Nijo, but we've had that for a long time thanks to story stuff. That's the capital in the middle of the country. And now, none other than Shingen Takeda shows up to tell me he's had a chat with the Emperor, and we have been made shogun, so there we go. We now rule everything technically. This actually has less of an impact than I thought. I figured like maybe I'd get control of other factions' units or something because we are now the highest military authority. But all that really happens is you complete a quest called Road to Shogunhood, so that's good. It's actually something that being the shogun allows you to do that makes it important, which we'll get to in a second. Before I even discovered what that was, we just had to continue on with the war because nothing happened. This is me looking around like, oh, I'm the shogun now. Okay, right, just keep killing the Mori. Maybe it's more merciful to kill them at this stage, I don't know. We probably shouldn't keep killing people if we're effectively claiming to have won the war by naming ourselves shogun, but that's not quite how it works. Anyway, we do bring down the final Mori castle, and that's going to be the end of them, and that's the end of my crusade. We had complete momentum the entire time and just swept the Mori off the map, and I imagine if we really wanted to, we could now deploy our 300,000 troops across our domain and sweep the Hojo away as well. With the Uichi, our new neighbours to the west, I was doing diplomacy with them. The plan was to get a marriage alliance there as well. I had no ambitions of going off to conquer Kyushu Island or anything like that. There's the diplomacy coming through. And another diplomatic development was that the Kono clan, our vassals on Shikoku Island, were annexed into our territory for whatever reason. I still don't know what causes vassals to get annexed. We've got a load of old vassals who never got annexed, but whatever. So that's Shikoku Island looking pretty secure right now. Before we do anything about our western frontier though, here's how you end the game, as I discovered. Being the shogun just does this. It allows you to use this new policy called war ban. We can tell everyone else to stop fighting, so we can't quite control them as I initially imagined, but you can tell them to just stop. So we give the orders to enact the policy, and then we have to end the turn and the orders go out. As it happens, everyone's fine with the orders, nobody opposes us anymore, and the land is suddenly entirely unified under the Oda clan. So I guess this is like everybody else agreed to be your vassal again, like in the good old days of the shogunate. And that's the end of that. The game ends. It plays us a little cutscene. Looks like we have at least one street with some people in it and a few rice fields, so that's the economy sorted out. and watching over this is Nobunaga wandering around the wilderness on his horse having a merry time, having successfully avoided being assassinated or usurped or any of the story events that probably were in store for him if we hadn't gone off the rails at some point during the campaign. He now begins to talk to himself up here on Lens Flare Ridge. He wants to control everything, so while he has become the shogun and taken control of the land, he's not happy with that. Indeed, Nobunaga's ambition was even greater, so I'm guessing he's planning on taking over the world. He's telling somebody about it. It appears to be his horse, or just the distance, I don't know. He's going to conquer everything to usher in a glorious new age for all. No policy suggestions. Really, all he's done is actually recreate a non-glorious old age by restoring the shogunate. It might even be worse now because the old shoguns weren't quite as insane as he is. He's a very bloodthirsty, psychopathic sort of fellow. I don't imagine that after the war he'll be particularly nice to the people. So there we go. We've made everything the same as it was, but worse. A glorious new age. But at least we do get this time-lapse showing us bits of how we did it. It seems to highlight certain clans being eliminated, but certainly not all of them. A few of them are missed off, such as the Azai and the Ashikaga Shogunate. Those are important ones. Maybe they had to be of a certain size or something to make the cut here. So there we go, we rapidly expanded out vaguely eastwards at first. At some point I turned west, and that was when Offie took command of many of our troops, and immediately the west is brought under control. And that's the end of the war really. Down goes the Mori clan. The other clans surrender, probably off camera. We win. So that's the end of the campaign. There's then this credit sequence, which kind of took me by surprise because it's a big change in tone. It's like a musical credits montage. At first it's a bunch of pictures that I think are from old Nobunaga's Ambition games, so I haven't played any of them, but maybe that's supposed to be nostalgic. It goes on to do this extended J-pop emotional sequence where we see lots of pictures of officers who I'm guessing I didn't have, so I didn't really know what it was talking about. If you played all the other campaigns in the game, it might hit a bit harder. But there's the man himself. He does make an appearance. Alongside him comes Mitsuhide Akechi and Hideyoshi Hashiba, who were probably supposed to be part of the plot, but we derailed the plot before some of the main characters entered, which is good for Nobunaga because only bad things happen to him really, so I suppose we did the right thing. But yes, you essentially have to have a walkthrough, as some people said in the comments, in order to make the story content happen. It's kind of weird. It's a game where the content is so hidden you don't even know it's there. You need a walkthrough to find it. It's kind of like Soulsborne games in that respect, where they have lots of hidden stuff. Anyway, after the emotional J-pop credits, we've unlocked a few achievements or something here, some feats as the game calls it. And these feats allow you to unlock other things. You go into the feats menu and I've unlocked a new starting scenario, and I can now play as some new officers, including Neko Izaka or something. And when I saw the word Neko, I thought, well, that's got to be a cat girl of some kind, so I am going to go and pursue that much, much further. You can see some of the initial achievements I got in 2015, so that must have been when I first bought the game and played it for 20 minutes or something, and then forgot about it forever, which is what I do with the vast majority of games that I have. In the list, curiously, we can actually see that we have completed 20% of the Oda quest line, so we barely got through any of the actual Oda content. The Anti-Nobunaga Coalition was the end of the quest for us, but it goes on with 4 times more quests, where presumably the Oda gradually transforms into the Toyotomi clan as it did in real life, and Nobunaga is long dead. Maybe one day I could come back and play the actual Nobunaga full campaign. After that I was just playing around, looking at the new scenarios. One thing I noted you can do here in the campaign setup is to make your own faction. That faction though has to only contain your custom characters, and here by the way is Neko Izaka, the unlocked character. Disappointingly, it's not obviously a cat girl, but then again the portrait is cut off at the top, so there are probably cat ears up there somewhere. Let's just believe that's the case. So yes, I made this faction here. It's just our new cat girl and Offie D now living together in this remote palace in the corner of the map. So perhaps this is the canon ending to the brave officer Offie D's tale. He went away with his possibly imaginary cat girl waifu, and hid in the corner somewhere. I realised that playing as a faction you've created yourself is a bit of an issue actually, because you start with nothing, you can only have one base, and you won't have enough number to win any battle, so you can't make any progress really. You can make yourself somebody else's vassal, which could cause you to not get killed by other factions maybe, who knows. I think the actual solution is to go into the custom officer maker and make loads, and then assign all of them to your clan at the start, so you could start with more stuff. But we'll leave Offie D and his catch waifu for a private moment. This is the end of the Nobunaga's Ambition campaign. I'll probably play this game again, maybe as another faction to see what's going on with them, or something at some point. Overall, I thought it was quite enjoyable. Next up will be Battle Brothers, which I've been told is not enjoyable at all, but that I should play it anyway. I think it might be one of these masochistic kind of games where it's not supposed to be fun and that's why it's fun in retrospect or something. It might cause it to be fun to be watched, especially in an edited form, so come and watch me have a miserable time with something or other in the next Abridged series. Thanks for watching this one.